2007 to 2017. And I mean, this wasn't like scientifically sound by any means, but I think it gave an indication, and that is that the number of self-employed positions had increased. The number of self-employed jobs for musicians had increased by 112% over that 10-year period, whereas the number of staff and salaried positions decreased by 11%. That is a very different looking workforce that is going to have a very different picture of access now than what it was 10 years ago. So that's something to think about as well.
Makes the diversity issue harder to solve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Couple more.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the European side of things. In addition to my university affiliation, I've been running a company now since 2009, which basically manages, promotes, and markets emerging female musicians in rock, folk, and alternative. And one of the issues that we consistently run into on the European front is, and I'd like your comments on outreach programs from organizations that promote and sponsor women in music. I'm really down in the trenches, feeling in dive bars and things like that, and trying to get young musicians started. And most of them have no idea or no sense of recruitment from women. I'm a member of Women in Music that, okay, so they don't reach down. So a lot, I would say, since 2009, 25 to 30% of the women with which I work are very proactive in the LGBT movement or feminine. They're not connected to music. They're much more focused on the political, economic, sociological environment. So I'm just wondering if there isn't something that can be done on the recruitment side to reach down below the Recording Academy and below Sheryl Crow, this kind of thing. There's an awareness problem that I sense.
Yeah, we used to do, I don't know if you still survey this, Carrie, but the number one reason why people don't buy more music, does anybody know? Because they don't know what to buy. That's still the issue, which is ironic. The number one reason why people now don't sign up for subscription services is because they're not sure what to use. But there's an organic discovery process that doesn't favor the alternatives, and there's no question about that.
I think that too, if you look to the PRS Foundation, I don't know if you're involved with them at all in their Key Change program and trying to link female artists, right, emerging artists. But it's also on the corporation side of who's sponsoring many of the festivals, many of the early career networking, and making sure that those sponsors earmark diversity and inclusion resources.
Right.
If they're going to write the check, there have to be these benchmarks met. And that's where we really start to pull the lever for those financial commitments have to, in a way, create spaces for women to network and meet with folks in the executive ranks. I think that that's fundamental, and that's what film festivals in this country do so well with their lab programs. The other thing is bringing venture capital and equity to female entrepreneurs and folks that want to start their own businesses vis-a-vis recording studios, right? And how do we put resources in the hands of young women like Anne Mincielli? I always pronounce her last name wrong, which I'm only on a first name basis with anyone I ever meet for that reason. But she works with Alicia Keys and has a very compelling recording studio in New York. Well, what would happen if we tried to merge philanthropists and venture capitalists with young women in the industry that are producing and engineering, so that there's a concerted effort to create equitable and safe environments, because that will take care of another problem at the exact same time. I don't know of those models in Europe, but it's something we've been, advocating for here, because it seems like low-hanging fruit to start getting this moving in a very fast way.
Pressure on businesses to make the stage look like the people.
Yeah,
really
which, we've done sort of like a lot of different kinds of speaking things we did in the public sector. I will say there's also this side, so I learned something interesting too around producing recently, that it's really like, it's a STEM career. there's
That's the
tons,
problem.
but there's but nobody that I had talked to when we, in the producers wing, for example, the academy, who are producers like Anne,
Right.
we're thinking about these as STEM careers,
Absolutely.
know anything about Girls Who Code,
Right.
or Women in STEM, or the Grace Hopper Convention, and there is this huge, we ourselves in the women's movement are wholly fragmented and isolated, which we need to do a better job about ourselves, which is making sure, because there's a huge opportunity, I think,
Absolutely.
because quite frankly, it'd be even more cool for kids to think, oh, I could be in STEM and do music, right? Even more than I could be in STEM and write computer code, right?
Right.
And I think there are linkages there at the grassroots level, to your point.
That are
which makes
easy to make
easy.
in terms of junior high, high school, and college curriculum.
Totally.
You front load music, you back load the STEM component,
Yep.
and we have a solution. And philanthropists would write a check for those programs easily, and that's something that we've been talking a lot about at the initiative, because it's a real way to open up the pipeline and engage women and young girls at a young age.
Right. All right, you've been very patient. Last question.
So I was wondering if you had some thoughts about, on the performer side of things, kind of the history of aesthetics and taste. So for instance, people say, oh, I like what I like. And so if they listen to, 50 years of men doing rock and roll or men doing whatever genre, and then you come in and you have females doing it, and you don't have that. You go to Spotify and it tells you, oh, if you like Led Zeppelin, then you'll like these artists. Well, there's not, well, he's kind of high voice, but not necessarily high voice women or only low voice women. There's this kind of aesthetics thing that's going on, that they don't sound like the men, and they don't sound the way that these artists that you already like. There's that challenge there that I think is really interesting. And then the other part of it that's interesting to me is the issue of age that comes into play. Is that music industry being such mostly young artists? I have my 15-year-old spree of trying to make it as a rock star, and it was really tricky as a female to try and first get the answer. You mentioned how they're not a band. Because you get other women, and you're a girl band because you sound female. And then if you're with guys and they think you're just trying to go listen to recruitment or groupie or something. It was just really challenging all the time. But I think a lot of it has to do with voices of where we sound as females, and that kind of, how do you solve that? I'm not looking at it just flood women's voices out there so people get used to it, but I don't know.
Well, I think it's interesting. So one is an empirical question. And we face this in storytelling and entertainment. The adage is women will listen to women, but men won't listen to women, right? Which there's not real evidence for that, right? If you look at the empirical literature, rigorous, experiments that have been done. So that's an empirical question you hear all the time. The other thing that the industry is not really thinking about is Gen Z, right? Where a lot of these labels and beliefs simply do not hold. And so I think we need to challenge the mythologizing, and I think that's why my work has been so successful, is I hear what people say and I'm like, sounds like an empirical question to me, let's test it. And it's often a huge expectancy violation. We were the ones that found that female-driven content actually sells overseas, when everyone said that a female couldn't open a film overseas. And this was long before Hunger Games and whatever else. So my suspicion would be in the music space, what are those mythologizing that are driving radio play, they're driving the Spotify list, they're driving all of these decisions, which they're based on, you interview a lot of folks in these industries, and they all say, the cacophony of voices almost all say the same thing. Because they're all just parodying themselves, and they really don't know, because most people don't like math, right? And women, this is a real problem in terms of the bias against math and science. So the very people that could advocate against the myths often shy away from it. And I think that's where social science can be so helpful. Challenge the myth, and then create a campaign onto how to solve it as soon as you reveal what the data show.
Right, and it's also in music very genre specific, right? So it's, women have access to specific genres and not others, and that is a function of what people perceive women are going to like with little data,
Right.
other than country. Okay, well, amazing group of women. I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you for listening.